This boy was being bullied and was seen by the girl he had a crush on. The boy quickly gestured for the girl to leave, but before he could speak he was punched in the face. Dao Yuan was knocked back several meters by the punch. That's not all. Yu grabbed Dao Yuan's tie. In front of the girl he slapped Dao Yuan across the face. Another slap. The girl couldn't stand it and tried to stop him. But as soon as her hand touched Yu's shoulder, Yu grabbed her hair. Dao Yuan could only watch helplessly, as the girl he liked was being bullied. At this moment the usually timid Dao Yuan suddenly heard countless voices in his mind telling him to save the girl. Finally, just as Yu was about to slap the girl's face, Dao Yuan rushed forward with a punch. But it was useless. Yu easily blocked the punch. Then he turned around, and was ready to strike Dao Yuan back, just when the punch was only 2.5 centimeters away from Dao Yuan's face. A sound rang out. System voice echoed in Dao Yuan's mind. Notification. Experience points calculation completed. Skills are now unlocked. With the sound of skills being triggered, Dao Yuan instantly began landing hundreds of heavy punches on Yu. He beat Yu into a bloody mess. Dao Yuan, who had just activated his skills, was a bit stunned. He thought to himself, wasn't this the same skill as a character in a game? Before Dao Yuan could react, another message from the system came through. It said that this system was a reward for Dao Yuan. At that moment Dao Yuan remembered what happened a week ago. It turned out that Dao Yuan was originally the best game booster in class. But due to an accident he ruined the mobile game gear of the school bully Yu. Yu ordered Dao Yuan to get him better weapons in the PC game, or he would humiliate him in front of his crush, stripping him naked in front of her. But Dao Yuan hadn't played the PC game in a while. Didn't realize the game had been updated. The bosses were significantly stronger now. He couldn't even solo the new bosses. But for the sake of his pride, Dao Yuan had no choice but to push himself and grind for 144 hours straight. After a furious 144-hour grind, he finally managed to get the equipment Yu wanted, with the help of a player named the One Who Calls the End. Since he got 2 pieces of equipment, Dao Yuan decided to give one to the other player. However, after grinding non-stop for 6 days and nights, Dao Yuan was about to get up to rest, when he suddenly collapsed and died at home. When Dao Yuan woke up he found that he had somehow been reborn, back to the moment when he broke Yu's equipment. It felt like a dream, but the girl whom he secretly liked was still there, greeting him, which made Dao Yuan realize it wasn't a dream. At this point the system also began to notify him, saying that this was a system that used game experience points to determine strength. Since Dao Yuan was originally a game booster, he had at least 2.5 years of total game playtime, and the system considered all the games he had played. Because of this, Dao Yuan had too much game experience. The system hadn't even calculated it yet. Before he could even react, Yu suddenly slammed his head onto the table. But after Yu was knocked out, Dao Yuan's system notified him again, saying that he had gained 200 experience points. After adding those 200 experience points, the experience calculation maxed out. The system then notified him that all the characters Dao Yuan had ever played, he could now use their skills. Just when Dao Yuan thought he could use this system to reach the peak of his life, the system suddenly notified him that he had successfully changed class. His job level became Sealed Game Booster. Then the system triggered a special effect that sealed all his power. After a few chimes, all of Dao Yuan's attacks and skills were sealed. Seeing this, Dao Yuan was frustrated and muttered angrily for a while. But just then the system started notifying him again. It said that because he had just defeated Yu, he had earned a golden key. Dao Yuan then looked around. Sure enough, he found a golden key nearby. But the system didn't explain how to use the key. Dao Yuan had no choice but to pocket it for now. Just as he took a couple of steps, the system sent him another notification. It said there was a task for him. Dao Yuan was invited to join a dangerous mission, but Dao Yuan ignored it, and decided to go to the bathroom first. However, as soon as he entered the bathroom, he encountered a troublemaker. The troublemaker immediately said he had seen Dao Yuan beating up Yu earlier, so he invited Dao Yuan to hang out after school. Dao Yuan was completely confused, but then he remembered the system's warning about the dangerous mission, and realized this must be it. Because of the word danger, Dao Yuan, who was usually meek, instinctively refused the troublemaker's invitation. Just as the troublemaker was leaving, the system notified Dao Yuan again. It said that because Dao Yuan had refused the mission, he would now experience intense pain. Then a golden light began to emanate from Dao Yuan's body. The boy had gone without using the bathroom for 144 hours, only to grind through a game he had played for 2.5 years, and still hadn't finished, because in that game, he needed to defeat the hardest boss. With a fire element weapon that added plus 90 attack power, he had to solo the Fire King's greatsword, which had a 25% drop rate in 7 days. Or else, in front of his crush, he would be stripped naked and beaten by Yu. But after 144 hours, he hadn't gotten the great sword. And despite spending a lot of money on items to boost the drop rate, the effect was about to end. At this point the boy was in tears. His mind started to imagine the scene of being humiliated by Ju. It turned out that the boy was a game booster at school. He was forced to help the school bullies farm game items every day. That day while the boy was grinding a boss, he had a brief chat with his crush. He unconsciously talked a bit more. Within moments the character in the game died. He had accidentally lost the most precious item in the account. Before he could think of an excuse to explain, Ju slammed his head onto the table. His name was Ju. He was one of the most feared school bullies to the boy. The boy hurriedly apologized to Ju and offered to give him the items from his account. Although Ju verbally agreed, he raised his hand and slapped the boy hard across the face. But that wasn't all. Ju kicked him again. In their eyes, the boy was just a dog who helped them level up in the game. After teaching the boy a lesson, Ju said he was going to play another game. Very game the boy had been grinding at the beginning, and told him to farm the extremely rare Fire King's greatsword within a week. Despite the almost impossible challenge, at first the boy remained calm. After all, he was a max level pro in the game. He could easily kill regular bosses with one hit. So he started his first solo run. But before he even managed to get the boss down to half health, he died. The boy panicked. He checked the game's announcement. It turned out the game had been updated. The max level was raised to 200, and the difficulty of special bosses had greatly increased. Even the drop rates for game items had been reduced significantly. With no other choice, the boy had to start researching strategies. After 18 hours, he finally managed to barely defeat the boss. But that wasn't enough. He had to keep grinding. After 37 hours the boy was beginning to crack. The evasion effect plus H2O had been repeated countless times. But all he got were some worthless items. Later the boy discovered that he needed to spend real money to increase the drop rate for epic items. So the boy spent all his savings. But after 64 hours, the great sword still hadn't dropped. The boy was on the verge of breaking down. He slumped in front of the computer, forcing himself to stay awake. Finally, after 144 hours, the boy still hadn't gotten the great sword. Just as he was ready to accept defeat and let the boss kill him again, suddenly, a player in white armor appeared. With a single strike he easily obliterated the boss. The boy saw his ID, the one who calls the end. Afterwards this melodramatic player asked the boy if he was looking for a teammate. He referred to himself as I, your emperor, and said he needed a vassal to attract monsters. Hearing this the boy quickly fell into servant mode. He assured the player he would assist him well. The player didn't refuse. Thus the boy began another round of intense grinding. Finally the fire attribute weapon attack, the greatsword, dropped. And he even got 2 in one go. The boy decided to give one to the player. The player was very happy, because he had also been grinding the boss for this very sword. The boy let out a relieved laugh. But the boy was at his limit. He stood up ready to go to sleep. It collapsed to the ground. At that moment the boy's mind suddenly flashed with news about gamers dying suddenly. The sensation of heart paralysis was exactly the same as how the boy was feeling right now. Yes, the boy had a heart attack. However, just as the boy closed his eyes, suddenly a chime rang in his head. The system buff was delivered just in time. The boy revived, and was sent back to a week ago. It was when the boy was heading to the bathroom. Suddenly golden light erupted from beneath him. A strange feeling surged up from his lower body. It felt like 10,000 bulls were charging into his backside. The boy immediately felt an intense rush. A guy passing by nearby thought the boy was rewarding himself. Little did he know Dao Yuan was actually being punished. This top-tier experience was going to last for 60 minutes. It turned out that just moments ago, Dao Yuan had accidentally activated a super powerful system. But the first mission was for him to go drink with a delinquent. But because Dao Yuan was too much of a coward, he immediately refused the delinquent's invitation. So this 1-hour luxurious personal backside massage package was the system's punishment for him. Just as Dao Yuan was about, the system gave another prompt. It asked Dao Yuan if he would accept the task again. This time Dao Yuan decisively agreed. Later that evening, Dao Yuan arrived early at the designated meeting place. Though nervous, scared and socially awkward, Dao Yuan still braced himself and greeted Zai Min. Before Dao Yuan could speak, Zai Min greeted him with a very friendly expression. He told Dao Yuan to make sure to drink and have fun tonight. Seeing this, Dao Yuan was so scared he broke into a cold sweat. He quickly pretended to answer a phone call. At that moment, 3 energetic girls walked up to Dao Yuan. He immediately noticed one of the short-haired girls. Coincidentally, these 3 girls are all friends of Zai Min. After sitting down, the short-haired girl happened to sit directly across from Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan didn't want to leave anymore, but since they were at KTV, drinking was inevitable. Zai Min immediately poured Dao Yuan a drink. Just as Dao Yuan was about to take a sip, the door of the booth suddenly opened. A boy with a face full of scars walked in. He whispered to Zai Min, Zai Ming, I've paid for the 2 hours already. Upon hearing this, Zai Min became annoyed. He stood up and cursed at the boy, calling him an idiot. He said, you came all this way. Are you really only here for 2 hours? The atmosphere shifted so quickly that Dao Yuan began to panic. But the drinking still had to continue. Zai Min introduced the boy to Dao Yuan. He said his name was Ji Han. While saying this, Zai Min started pouring Ji Han a drink. But he didn't pour it into the cup at all. He spilled it all over Ji Han's pants. Then he quickly joked, oops, my mistake. He apologized to Ji Han in a mock-serious manner. To everyone's surprise, Ji Han didn't resist at all. Instead, he apologized to Zai Min, saying it was his fault for not catching the drink properly. After 3 rounds of drinking, one of the girls suddenly suggested that Zai Min sing a song. As soon as Zai Min heard this, he immediately got excited. He said that if he was going to sing, Ji Han should dance along. Upon hearing this, the girl across felt that it was a bit too much. She suggested Zai Min should sing on his own, but Zai Min teasingly said, Ji Han actually likes to dance. He even turned to ask Ji Han if that was true. Ji Han seemed at a loss. Before Ji Han could answer, Zai Min suddenly grabbed him and started threatening him. Dao Yuan could hear that after just 2 sentences from Zai Min. Ji Han instantly became obedient like a dog. He immediately stood up and said he would dance. Dao Yuan couldn't bear to watch anymore. He made an excuse to go to the bathroom. After arriving at the bathroom, Dao Yuan recalled what had just happened. Suddenly he remembered the task the system had mentioned. The task said he just needed to drink with the delinquent. He had already done that. Leaving halfway should be fine. But as he was about to leave, Dao Yuan hesitated. He remembered the times he had been bullied before. Compared to Ji Han, Dao Yuan felt that they were kindred spirits. After a mental struggle, Dao Yuan returned to the booth. However, as soon as he entered, Dao Yuan noticed that Ji Han's pants were gone. This is the most disrespectful system I've seen. It actually made a weak main character who gets beaten up by school bullies 3 times a day go up against someone who's like a god compared to Ma Dong-sok. In the end, Dao Yuan was used as a basketball by him. But that was just the beginning. Next, Dao Yuan was punched in the face by this strong man. Dao Yuan didn't even have time to straighten his head before the strong man grabbed him again. He slapped Dao Yuan's left cheek twice. Then he lifted Dao Yuan like a chicken. Looking at Dao Yuan with a look as if he were garbage, he said, "You're truly useless." After saying that, he tossed Dao Yuan onto the stairs beside him. Dao Yuan hit the stairs like an L, crashing into the corner. But just then, Dao Yuan's golden key fell from his pocket. It happened to fall next to Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan quickly grabbed it, but there was still no prompt on how to use the key. Just then, the system suddenly popped up a message. Of course it goes in the hole. Then there was a ding sound, and a page displaying skills popped up. In the center of the page there was a keyhole. Seeing this, Dao Yuan didn't hesitate. He inserted the key directly. As the key turned, Dao Yuan's face suddenly lit up with a glow. With the system buff, he stood up once again. The strong man also got ready to rough up Dao Yuan again. He started charging toward Dao Yuan. The two were preparing for a direct clash. But this time Dao Yuan wasn't panicking at all. He also started to exert force with his feet, charging toward the strong man. This time Dao Yuan was about to use a skill. It was a foot technique that comes from the sky. Because in the game, no matter the power difference between the two opponents, this move could instantly turn the tide. However, just as Dao Yuan was about to jump and activate the skill, the system suddenly sent a warning. It said there weren't enough skill points. Apparently activating the skill required 120 skill points, but Dao Yuan only had 100. Once again he was screwed over by this crappy system. He was punched into the air by the strong man, and landed with a roll. Ha ha ha. The strong man couldn't help but mock Dao Yuan, and Dao Yuan was still dazed. He had thought the golden key would be a top-tier reward. Not only was the system garbage, the reward was even worse. But then he thought, since there was a reward last time when he beat Ju, there should be a reward for beating Zai Min just now too. It seemed like it was a copper key. Thinking this, Dao Yuan quickly got up. But when he looked at Zai Min, he didn't see the key. Dao Yuan thought for a moment. The reward key should be at the location where the previous task was completed. So Dao Yuan decided to take a gamble. He was going to look for the copper key near the bathroom. Before he could even touch the doorknob, the strong man grabbed him. Then he threw a punch directly at Dao Yuan's kidney, and followed up with a body slam. The injury from this attack pushed Dao Yuan to his physical limit. His body began to tremble. But there's no choice. Now the only way for Dao Yuan to survive is to find the key. However, just as he got up, he was grabbed by the burly man. This time the man slammed Dao Yuan's head straight into the wall. Dao Yuan managed to press his hand against a nearby elevator button. The blow caused Dao Yuan to lose consciousness completely. He collapsed in front of the burly man. Dao Yuan must escape now, otherwise it's a dead end. But the burly man's large hand gripped Dao Yuan's head. He slammed Dao Yuan's head back into the wall. But it also caused Dao Yuan to press the elevator button. However, Dao Yuan was dazed by the blow. He collapsed in front of the burly man. The burly man casually stepped on Dao Yuan's head. To his surprise, Dao Yuan spoke again. He said he had called someone and they should be arriving soon. But the burly man didn't take him seriously. He mockingly said Dao Yuan was quite the actor. As the elevator slowly ascended, Dao Yuan struggled to hold on to his last breath. The elevator arrived. The sound of the elevator doors opening startled the burly man. Dao Yuan seized the opportunity. He desperately shouted towards the elevator. He signaled for the person he called to come and punch the burly man. Hearing this, the burly man quickly turned to look. But there was no one in the elevator. The burly man was instantly enraged. But by the time he turned around, Dao Yuan had already run off. Dao Yuan had reached the lobby. But his body had reached its limit. After a few steps he collapsed to the ground. But in order to survive he had to keep running. Just then, the burly man chased after him. He cracked his knuckles preparing to tear Dao Yuan apart. Seeing this, Dao Yuan was nearly scared out of his wits. However, in this moment of despair, Dao Yuan noticed an old bronze key on the ground. He quickly picked it up. The system showed that only part of his abilities could be released. Ding! A multiple choice appeared. Dao Yuan didn't have time to think. He immediately selected it. Without hesitation he chose the ability points. Accompanied by a burst of blue light, mysterious power surged continuously from beneath Dao Yuan. At this moment the burly man came running toward him. The burly man didn't hesitate. He threw a punch at Dao Yuan. But Dao Yuan dodged it. Dao Yuan stepped on the burly man's thigh. Then using the momentum he jumped onto the burly man's shoulder. In the next moment Dao Yuan soared into the air. His right foot was already fully charged. The sound of his skill activating. It flashed through Dao Yuan's mind. Dao Yuan slammed his foot hard onto the burly man's head. The damage from this kick was off the charts. The burly man was hit so hard that blood spurted from his nose. Dao Yuan landed gracefully. The burly man, now unconscious, collapsed to the ground. At this moment the system notified that the mission was complete. Dao Yuan was rewarded with a silver key. Dao Yuan quickly picked it up. However, as Dao Yuan stood up, Zai Min came over grumbling behind him. Zai Min angrily called out to Dao Yuan, asking him what was going on. Before Dao Yuan could respond, he was stopped by a huge man, who looked even more imposing than Ma Dongzi dressed in red. The man asked Dao Yuan what he had done to his brother. But that wasn't all. Several energetic young men came out from a nearby private room. The sound of Dao Yuan activating his skill had attracted them. The young men saw their older brother knocked out by Dao Yuan. They started walking toward Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan, with barely any strength left, was soon surrounded by 20 or 30 energetic young men.